Hey, well, a very busy day yesterday. This is just an update on what happened because I know that a lot of you are interested in knowing what happened to uh, our little kids yesterday. Uh, first one first. Jodel was the little boy that we believed was paralysed. From what we were told before we met, that he was paralysed from the waist down. We discovered that that wasn't quite true. What had happened, at a guess from the surgeon that we went to see. We went to see a surgeon, a specialist in this kind of stuff, an orthopedic specialist, and his guess was that there was some trauma at birth, and so the boy was brought up with an acceptance that all was not well, and the possibility was that he went during the birth, during the labour, perhaps he went for some time without having oxygen, and of course that has been known to have a really bad effect, and yet other people have survived very well. Well, apparently Jeremy suffered some loss. Now, what we observed when we went round to see him for the first time, we observed that for a kid who was paralysed from the waist down, he sure was scooting about the place a lot. Now, he wasn't doing it standing on his feet, and as one savvy subscriber said, and we have a lot, he said, he or she observed that there was what was called drop foot, and that is where, let's say that the foot is supposed to be like this. You get the arm coming down and then the foot going out at the right angle. Well, if you're dragging yourself along on the ground, there's a sandy consistency to the place that Jodel lives, and what's happened is that his foot has leveled out. So here we are, and it should be up like this, but it's not, and it's become formed like that. And what happens is that the force that pushed it down then becomes the normal force, and the bones can, I think, calcify. In other words, they can fill in, and then it becomes very difficult to reinstate the right way that the foot should be working. Well, you can do it. Now, we didn't feel very encouraged by what the surgeon had to say. He didn't seem to think that there was anything that he could do, or if it was, we would have to go further. Now, as part of what he said, we had an x-ray, and the x-ray shows what has happened, and we've now decided, because we went on further and we had an interview then and an examination by a therapist, doctor who had this little therapy place. So he was very optimistic. He said, yes, I believe that that the boy will be able to walk. Now, I'd like to point out what my experience was with a Filipino therapy unit. When I was in San Fernando, I started to have problems with the sciatic nerve. Now, a lot of people in the world suffer with this, and what it does is it makes it rather difficult to walk, which coincidentally is happening to me right now. Now, whatever the sciatic nerve, whatever this mystery is, that this is a malady that's not so easy to cure, when I had it the last time, I went online and I discovered that there were people who were posting online saying that they'd had it for years, and it wasn't a very encouraging time for me to be looking online. Lots said that they'd had it and never been able to be without pain, which is what I was in. So finally I got to see a doctor, someone who came highly recommended, and a friend of mine back in the States had advised me to have a steroid injection, and that apparently placed in the right place, not a very popular place with me, but placed somewhere around the rear end, would have me walking without pain. Now, I hate doing things which are not in any way a cure or a resolution to the problem. So if it's something that just puts off the pain, it doesn't seem to be worth it to me. So I went to see this doctor, and I suggested to him, well, I've been told that a steroid injection. No, I don't. And he was quite adamant. He said, no, it's an invasive treatment. It's not always successful, and it will be very painful. So the next question for an open-minded, what I consider an open-minded, intelligent person, is to say, so what's the alternative? Now, a lot of people come over here and they assume that the level, the standard of medical treatment here is so far below America and Great Britain. I haven't found it to be that way. Now, obviously you've got to have money to be treated, but certainly it's that way in America, and the differences in the UK is you just go on a waiting list. I knew someone who died while waiting for a hip replacement. It just went on and on and on, and as far as the pain went, which there was a lot, too bad, you know, you're on the waiting list, we're hoping to get you there, and it's free. Well, it's only free if you get it. If you get the treatment, then it can be regarded as free, but it's not free if you haven't had it. I mean, you could say there's a Rolls Royce here and it's free, we'll put you on the waiting list for it. So that never makes much sense to me. I listened to the doctor and he said, I'm going to send you to a colleague of mine who runs a therapy unit, whatever you would call that. So, therapy clinic, I guess you would call it. I went to the therapy without too much hope. Well, I had various treatments. I had the treatment that the little boy Jodel, if you saw the video, he had, which is pads which have an electrical current moving through them, and what happens is that the pad is there like this, and what it's doing is it's going. Now with Jodel, I'm sorry I said Jeremy, I mean Jodel. Jodel, it scared him. He didn't know how to process it, and he was crying and he was upset and he was scared. Now I wasn't upset, but of course I was crying and I was scared. Just kidding. I went there. I had that treatment. I had the a sonar treatment, which is sound going into the muscle. So I had that. I had heat treatment where I had a hot pad. I just lay there with a pad on my back down towards the small of the back, and I had that. And then I had some exercises, and I did leg pull-ups and stuff like that. And just generally was brutalized by a therapist who was pushing me this way and pushing me that way. But basically, apart from the expensive equipment, I was really having someone else push my body through a series of exercises. So that was the thing that I learned on that, and it was important. Now I put up with that, and I went, I think, 3 days. I think I went for 3 to 4 days a week, and during that time, let me see, I used to go at a pre-arranged time, so I never had to wait. It cost me 300 pesos. 300 pesos, $6. So 3 weeks, and I walked out of there in minor discomfort, but walking and actually out of pain. So I'm very optimistic that we can get something done for Jodel. I think that he can walk again, and we're going to damn well do something about it, and we're going to try to make it happen. And that's our feeling on Jodel. Let me go on now and tell you about Baby Jane. Baby Jane is our name for her, and that's how many people the world over know our little girl as Baby Jane. Because sometimes when you're doing these things and blogs, you need to give something. You need to give people a catchy thing that they can remember by. Now her name is Jenelyn. Actually, is Jenelyn. Now Taliklik's name is Jenelyn, but nobody knows her as Jenelyn. They all know her as Taliklik. And Baby Jane was an easy name for people to remember, and it stuck, and even now we still call her Baby Jane, and she answers for us as Baby Jane. Now Baby Jane, just to tell you what happened with Baby Jane suffers from this is a malady that runs in the family, by the way. So the mother and father are actually quite used to seeing this, and quite used to seeing her break bones. Now, another name for the malady, a simple name, is brittle bone disease, but it's osteogenesis imperfecta. Osteogenesis imperfecta. That's apparently the official name for it. But brittle bone tells it all, doesn't it? It's where your bones are so brittle that a fall that anybody else would just get up, dust themselves up and walk away from can be a major catastrophe for you with this malady. Now, we have history with Baby Jane. Baby Jane, for some reason, used to be looking forward to seeing us when we went to church on Sundays. And she and Lovely and LJ, who sadly we lost some time ago. She had a brain hemorrhage and she died. So we're still not really over that. How can you get over the loss of a child? She's not our child any more than Lovely is our child, and neither of them are adopted. Now the thing is, this is one of those things that you try to straighten it out, and it will never lie down. Somebody, I'll tell you right now, she's not adopted, and somebody in the next video will tell me you can't adopt, and we can never get it quite over. Lovely is not adopted. Lovely is our foster child. But when you tell someone all of the examples of people who have adopted a child, when it comes to telling the child, and not everybody does, when it comes to telling their adopted child that she or he is adopted, they make the word adopted into something positive. So you being adopted, they tell the child, means that we chose you. We saw you and we chose you. Well, being fostered is the same thing. The mother of Lovely and LJ died a little while ago, I think before the pandemic, or just about the start of the pandemic, so a couple of years ago. And before she died, we met her in Taliban, and she came over and she spoke to us, and she said to Beth, if I die, please promise me that you will take care of my children, which we did. And LJ chose to stay with the father, and Lovely chose to come to us. And so that there would be no problem, we went through the channels, saw a government licensed social worker who prepared the paperwork, which we signed along with the father and actually the stepmom, and they signed the papers so that if anything happened and someone said to me, you're not allowed to have that child with you, I would be able to point them to the paperwork in which it stated that I was legally the foster parent of Lovely. And we've learned over the years that this is the kind of thing that we do in advance to stop what you'll excuse me for saying is the shitstorm that follows. So back to Baby Jane. Baby Jane has parents. It's a small family. I believe there are now, I think, 3 girls and a baby boy. Lovely is the middle of the girls. She is the middle child of the girls, and she is known to have osteogenesis imperfecta. And the parents are resigned to it. Now, we've had people who are subscribers who are loving parents of their own children who would go to the ends of the earth to avoid what is happening to Baby Jane. And I can only say that when it first happened, and this is the fourth series of breakages, of fractures that Baby Jane has gone through. And when the first one happened, they had not called us. I guess why should they? But I think they knew that we felt close to Baby Jane. Baby Jane always used to come and sit next to me at church, as did Lovely. Some kids, there is an immediate chemistry, and so they used to come and sit with me at church. So when this happened, we had hoped that we would have been called, but instead we heard it through the grapevine that Baby Jane was sick and that she'd been hurt. That was all that we had, and we went there and were shocked to see that. I mean, I know enough about first aid to know that when a breakage is serious, and I could see that this was a compound fracture, meaning that the 2 bones from the knee down, there are 2 bones to facilitate this turning of the foot like this, and both of those bones were broken. So that was a terrific shock to me, and we then did what we have to persuade the mother to let us take the child, and we did. In the end, we did, almost by persistent, being relentless and saying, please, you've got to let us, you've got to, you know, we're going to do it, let's do it now, and if it was you, and all kinds of guilt trips and whatever. And we finally got to take baby Jane to Ubai Hospital. Right. When we took her, first of all, to Taliban Hospital, they didn't even have the idea to be able to immobilize the leg. Now, what I had done while we were at baby Jane's house, I'd immobilized the leg in cardboard. So all that I'd done, if you look at this as if it's a straight piece of cardboard, I'd taken the cardboard and I put it like that so that the leg inside it was immobilized, and then we taped it or strung it together so that the leg wasn't just flopping around, which must have been like agony for the child. And we fixed her up there, and then lo and behold, a little while later, when all of that was all done, she did it again. And then we fixed that, and then she did it again. And the third time it was quite serious. Well, it was more serious than the others, because she was up to the waist, up to the belly button, in a plaster cast, and both legs, which were cast apart with a gap so that she could go to the toilet, and a bar across. So that was like, what can I show you? There was, her legs were apart like this, and then right here on the thigh, inside the, put it that way, inside the cast was a metal bar, which was to keep the legs in that position, so that they were supported. And on the right leg it was down to the knee, and then on the left leg, which was where, sorry, kicking, yeah, on the left leg it was down to the ankle. Let's see if I can get organized here. So that was then. Each time we only found out about it after the fact, and it was sometimes very upsetting, because I can't brag that I'm easily able to go around and see traumatic situations happening to kids and not be affected by it. You know, I know that with Jeremy, who I'll tell you about in a moment, it's very upsetting for me. So what have we decided? Well, the surgeon suggested, well, we can do this or we can do that, and he had various things, but we came out with the idea that nothing really had been suggested that would work for us and baby Jane. My personal opinion is, and I'm not a doctor, but my personal opinion is that you can't sentence a child who is 9 years old to 6 years of not being able to walk simply because she might break a bone again. Because no matter what happens, she could fall and break more. Even now she could fall and break bones in her arms because she's teetering around on one stick, because we haven't known about what is happening. So we're going to handle it, is the problem, is the issue. And what we plan on doing is going back to the doctor that fixed her up when she had that complicated or more extensive plaster cast with both legs and up to the belly button, and 3 weeks in hospital. We're going to go back to him or the other guy that did the other two, and we're going to show him the x-ray that we had, and we're going to say, what do you think? Can we put it back together as it should be? And then in 3 months' time we take off the cast and she will be able to walk properly. Now, whatever we have to do in order to make this viable, we'll make it work. Somehow we will make it work. And for our trip to Tagbilaran yesterday, have to say that the doctor was very good, because we hadn't had the protocol. Here we go again. Baby Jane had not yet been visited by a health visitor who would would give a report to the Chuchi Foundation, who were paying the bill, right? So the Chuchi Foundation, a much bigger, a huge foundation, with not unlimited. Nobody has unlimited resources, but they are much better off than us. And because we put the information and the photographs and all of that, they agreed that they would do something for the 3 children that we put together into one report. Well, what we're going to do is get in touch with the Chuchi Foundation and see if we can get the bill for the surgeon in Obai to put the bones back into the correct place. At the moment, because of the way that the left leg was fractured, it seems to have given a slight dislocation, and instead of, let's put it that way, instead of the legs being together, they're like this. So I can't see leaving it for another 6 years in order to wait for the bones to do what. So we're going to suggest that and see what we can do, and that's the ongoing thing for Baby Jane right now. A very quick what can I say, a very quick report on Jeremy, who is the adorable child. I always say he's got the face of an angel, because he smiles, he doesn't complain, and when we asked him what he wanted, we went to see him at first, and of course nothing can prepare you, by the way. I'm sure that there are lots of people who say, yeah, well, you just have to cut yourself off a little bit and not get definitely not get too involved, not get too attached. It's impossible. It's just impossible. You can't go and say, I'm going to help this kid, but I'm not going to love him. How can you do that? So we asked him what. I mean, I could see that there was going to be nothing that we could do for him bodily because of the way that he is. If you're doubting me, go look at the videos of Jeremy and you'll see what I mean. And even the health visitor that went to see him for a report for the Chuchi Foundation had also made the same assessment. There was just nothing that could be done. The limbs are in such a bent and twisted, set way. They almost look like pieces of rope, and so it's not possible. And he can feel the payment, He can feel the pain, but he can't move anything. So we did a lot for him, for his house. We remodeled his house. We knocked down the wall out of his bedroom and built a little porchway out with no threshold and a widened doorway so that his wheelchair, which we gave him, which has been modified into a bed. Don't forget that this is not a child that can turn over and fall out of bed. He lies on his back and that is his world. So that's what he sleeps on. And now he's in a secure wheelchair which can be wheeled out onto his little open porch, which is covered in from the rain, and it faces out onto the little tiny road that passes the house, and it was as much as we could do. Now we've actually got a cell phone to him now. The only thing he asked for was a cell phone when we first met, and Beth said to him, "Jeremy, what good is a cell phone? You can't use a cell phone." And then one of the people that came with us piped up and said, "Actually, he can." So the cell phone was handed to Jeremy, turned on, and he amazed us by showing that he could play a video game, because his hand is up here like this, and you put the phone up here and he can tap away and play video games. Now my thought was, play video games, he can communicate to people. People could actually write to him, say, "Hi Jeremy, I'm in Australia or America." So much could come from that if we can get him online. Which is our next thing, to get him online. And it's funny how timing comes in, but the road to Jeremy's house has now been dumped with loads of gravel and road surfacing, which has not yet been flattened out. So we can't get to Jeremy's house in our truck. So we sent somebody there that had a motorcycle. Motorcycle went and gave Jeremy his cell phone. So now we're a little bit delayed, but we're going to get back to Jeremy. So we have our three ongoing cases, and we're going to be giving you an update on what is happening with them. But just incredible kids. Very sobering, because when you see the kind of thing that they endure on a daily basis. Baby Jane, never a complaint, just beautiful child and never a complaint. And Jeremy, the same, beautiful face, never complains. And when we said that we would come back after that first time, "We'll get you a phone, Jeremy, and we'll come back and see you." And he said, "Thank you." Sobering. Thanks for listening.